folks. Welcome inside the Parisi Palace at 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Happy Saturday afternoon, wherever you are, whether East Coast or West Coast. We are on Mountain Time, going back to Pacific Time pretty soon, but thanks a lot for making us part of your day today. My show revolves around the 4 L's: leadership, love, life, and lineage. The ongoing story of real music made by real artists. A master is someone who teaches. A master is someone who sacrifices and loves themselves. To master is to know how to access your native gifts. As far as my guest is concerned, that translates out to being one of the most in-demand, highly respected, versatile bassists in the world. He was raised by his musical elders like Richard Davis, who has been a guest twice on this program. The Pisces, swimming upstream, downstream, always adapting, always churning, always overcoming. Astrology aside, my guest has played with the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, for the last 50 years. That was in between studying and watching Mingus duel with Dolphy in some mob-run club. Lock the groove, play free, play a blues, before the word funk even came into the lexicon. He's played and recorded with King Curtis, Jim Pepper, Duane and Gregg Allman, Eddie Harris, Gil Scott Heron, the voices of East Harlem, and Shirley Scott. A master gives back, like Ali Akbar Khan and Jerry Wexler and Dizzy Gillespie. Knowing their instrument, knowing their strengths, like Chuck Rainey or Bernard Purdie or the late, great Richard T. My guest today is giving back on multiple levels, including mixing live iconic music with youth baseball, something only Jackie Robinson would have dreamed of. Jerry Jemmott, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you for having me, Jake. It's really my honor and a privilege and pleasure to be here with you and your audience.
It is so great to connect with you, man. And I don't think we'll get through everything today, but we'll do our best to at least get started.
Well, I'm one out of the introduction.
You know, I want
a lot of roads have been traveled.
A lot of roads, Jerry. But I just wanted to start out by asking you about if you could really talk about a guy. You know, he was one of the earliest guests on my program, and did not want to talk at all really about his prolific career as a bassist. But I just wanted you to talk about how the first time you met Richard Davis and what he has meant to your music career.
He was one of my heroes coming up in the late 50s, early 60s. And I never Richard Dubin introduced me to the world of studio work through his encounters of all the guys in Duke Ellington's band, Count Basie's band, Maynard Ferguson's band, Stan Kenton's band, Tito Puente's band. He was a young cat from upstate New York, and he was able to drive down to New York at the age of 16 and get involved and very, prolific with the tongue, I should say. And so he introduced me to that world, and then I met Richard in 1964 doing studio work. And we've been friends ever since. I mean, he was just a tremendous soul. He introduced me to true Buddhism, which I still practice. And he has been a stalwart in terms of the fight that we all have to do as activists in the struggle of human equality and fixing things. I was just reflecting before today how as a child, I used to always try to fix things. The world is a broken place. There's plenty of work to be done. And so Richard has kept that. He's been so encouraging and such a spearhead for me to continue my work on every level. With his work up in Wisconsin, I read this interview for you, was really astounding. He has 55 people in his group this year, his group on racial healing. So he was still in the fight, still playing his butt off. I tell you, meeting him and George Vivian and Ron Carlin was all part of the trip, the journey I was on. To play with the people I used to sit down and listen to as a kid. To be accepted by them.
I was hoping you could talk a little bit about was Richard practicing Buddhism when you met him? I mean, I just know he went up against a lot of prejudice in his own career early on, and he had to maintain peace while still being able to, find his groove. And I just was wondering about how early he connected you to the Eastern spirituality.
No, he was, when we met, we were both out there wild and crazy, so to speak. We both, in fact, we used to celebrate our birthdays together. We became so tight. And he got introduced to it somewhere around in the early 70s, and he immediately turned me on to it. So it took about, I guess, 8 or 9 years into our journey before he started practicing.
Talking to Jerry Jemmott here, and I mean, Jerry, next to, I mean, you mentioned a couple of guys, Ron Carter. All you got to do is look at the Rascals album and see that it was Richard Davis, Chuck Rainey, and Jerry Jemmott. As best you can, for my generation, and younger, talk about the fluidity of the studio scene in the late '60s and early '70s in New York, and how being in different musical experiences like the Rascals and then Groove Holmes, or that, how did that fluidity help you develop your own individual sound?
Well, historically, in the recording business, they always had to have a certain time frame you had to work within. And you had to be flexible, and you had to come up with a new idea to make a new sound. That was really the criteria for doing studio work within the rhythm section. The catch and the horn sections, they would have to play. The string section, they had to play what was written. But the guys, the rhythm section, and they had to be flexible also because they had to play with a certain feel that might be, the arranger would come up with an idea, combining different genres of music, so to speak, one against the other, which is an effective way of making a new presentation. And you have to be open and ready to be able to reproduce the sound and feel it within 3 hours. We do 4 songs within a 3-hour period. Sometimes we do an hour overtime to get the 4th one in. But usually the goal is to get the 4th done in 3 hours. So you have to be basically very versatile, and the most versatile musicians are the primary jazz musicians.
Right.
So they got the first call to make these records. So this has been the history of the music business when I came in the late 60s. I was with a group of musicians called the Mixed Birds that Alfie Way put together. He was a studio engineer at one of the big studios, and he decided to get these kids together and introduce them to the studio world. And we recorded, and I was 14 at the time. That's where I met Richard Duane, in fact. And he just came in with all these wild stories about, the guys in Count Basie's band and Ferguson's band. And he knew everybody. His staff was there to get the gab. He opened my eyes up and gave me such a direction and said, well, I want to do that.
Right.
And then after a while, it took a while to break in. I had to switch instruments from upright bass to electric bass. I wanted to make that transition because I had grown older and things had changed. I was part of the family. And music had almost taken a back seat to me in some instances. But I kept on plugging away. I had a day job for a while. And I was still able to do gigs. I was working 3 or 4 nights a week ever since I was 12 years old. So I was used to working, and I had a lot of experience. So that's really the key for me going into the studio. I had a lot of experience playing with Cucho and a lot of the Soul Brothers. I was the Mr. Allman Orchestra. I was in the Mixed Birds, and I did local gigs with, any and everybody coming up. So that was the key to being a successful musician, being versatile to make recordings and have them produce a product that is unique within 3 hours.
Jerry, I wanted you to, I think also when you talk about flexibility, musicians, I remember talking to Chuck Rainey, and, he said that, some guys he loved working with, some guys played amazing music and they were totally strung out. But, the musicians themselves are not always the best, are not always the most flexible people. And I go into I don't know. I went to a thrift store this week, and I find Aretha's Gold record, which we played a track off of, and I look on the back, and my God, there's Jerry Jemmott from the late '60s and there's two guys there that I want you to talk about because I think that these guys are missing in the music business because it really isn't a business today. The two guys I want you to talk about as far as helping musicians become more flexible. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Is Jerry Wexler and Tom Dowd, only because those guys seemed like they knew exactly who to pair up with people, and they allowed you guys. I mean, there's a great picture of you and Duane Allman and I think Wexler just talking over, just communicating. But those guys were not musicians. How vital were they to that vibrancy in the music?
Oh, they were very important. They had the checkbooks, they had the facility, they had the resources and distribution, and they had the desire to make soul music available to people. They were very, it comes at the top, with Allman and Nessie again. They set the standard for, they were, Duke Ellington when they were in, they come from Turkey. And they were like knocked out by the sound. They spent their life trying to reproduce that live sound, and that feeling of soul and jazz expression. And so Tom and Jerry were very cool. They listen. The key point is in the crowd and that combination of people, you get the desired effect, and that's what a producer's supposed to be able to do, have that vision to assemble the right components to get the right effect. And they were good at doing that. I wasn't on every session. Everybody was on every session, and they would pick and choose what they thought the artist would need to give them a unique sound.
This is kind of a large question, but was one reason you left the studio scene was because some of that communication broke down? Because you were you did everything, Jerry. You were doing funk, soul, blues, jazz, rock, and then I see some of those people, those unsung cats who did not play instruments, but they knew they knew how to put these people together to make these. Listen, as far as when I interviewed Felix Cavallari, he paid huge homage to you guys because he knew that those albums would not sound as good without you guys. And that all kind of went away. And did it play a role? Did you see the deterioration of the studio scene, and that's why you got out of there?
Well, there were multiple reasons. Actually, getting out was I had a real bad accident in '72, and that kind of did a lot to me. But even before that, as Heron would say, it was the advent of the drum machine that did it.
Yeah, right.
It was a drum machine. I'd already done work with synthesizers. I worked with Grant Murtaugh, a huge production firm that did exclusively jingles. And John Murtaugh decided to do an album with the synth, Move the Moog. And that was cool. That was becoming popular. It was me, Herbie Hancock, Grady Tate, bunch of cats. Who else was, let's forget back to everybody. Smash Aretha was on the gig. And really interesting. And that was like an eye-opener for me to hear these sounds being made by these instruments. And then to have that combined in time with the drum machine. At that point, people could make their own music. They started not using musicians. They could get away with sounds that were, instrument-like to make commercial music, and became, the listeners here becomes accustomed to certain sounds and frequencies. A lot of people think of the digital age as being dumbed down because they don't get the full impact of the full tonal spectrum that you get from vinyl or tape. But this is a matter of production. Manufacturing, distribution, airplay, all these things come into effect. So now, at that point, everybody is able to make a good recording in their home studio.
The
whole studio industry was basically, went under. Studios started closing. You started looking for other things that you do. I wish I could have gotten into more production work. I did some more independent production work, but that was pan out. So I went to eventually with which is guidance, I'm with the teaching.
Yeah, well, we're not going to. I just wanted to ask you about. It was fascinating to me, just and the way you articulated that. I look at the drum machine and synthesizers. You just nailed them both, and just the fact that really my daughters and younger generations basically have been growing up with digital music being stuffed into their ears, and that's what you get used to hearing, and that's just what you. So, but Jerry, we have a game on this program called Name That Tune, and we're gonna take. Why don't you settle in and do me a favor also? If you can just move the phone a little bit away from. You're a little bit hot, so just give you a little distance with your phone to your mouth, and that would be cool. And check this.
I'm wearing a headset. I can hardly hear you.
Okay. Well, we're gonna work through it. Take a listen to this track, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay.
Okay.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, sponsored in part by Stereo Hospital, with over 40 years of experience repairing all types of home audio equipment, from vintage table radios to digital surround sound. At 4044 East Speedway inside Metronome Music, it's the place to take your turntable, CD player, tape deck, just about anything to do with a stereo. Call 722-4610 and they'll take care of you. All right, Mr. Jemmott, what do you got for us?
I would guess I would be Push Push with Herbie Man.
You nailed it. And the name of that tune, Oscar, is what? We got
Spirit in the Dark.
In the bush.
Spirit in the Dark is what that's called. And
Spirit in the Dark, okay.
And that was Duane Allman on guitar. And I interviewed Bert Holman last week, and he talked about promoting a concert for the Allman Brothers in 1970 at American University. Your history with the Allman Brothers, with Gregg, with both brothers, goes back, and I was just hoping you could talk a little bit about the first time you met those guys, and what their legacy is in music history.
Well, yeah, that's a story I love to tell because King Curtis actually introduced me to Duane. We did some work together, and we were in them on sessions together. And then Jerry Wexler decided that he was going to send me and him down as hitmen to Muscle Shoals to record several different artists, Wilson Pickett, Arthur Conley, Otis Rush, probably leaving out somebody. But anyway, me and Duane, we were both young. We were about the same age, 6 months apart, in fact. We decided at that point that we were kind of set up for getting our brains picked, doing session work, period. This is like in 1969. And I was aware of different kinds of work available as a studio musician other than just making records. I'd already been doing, radio, TV commercials, radio commercials, films. So I figured I would just focus on doing that kind of work. So we went to the airport, leaving Muscle Shoals one day, and I said, what you going to do, brother? He said, well, I'm going to go home and start a band with my brother. So I'm going to start doing these dates to go through jingles.
Right.
So,
Right.
and the last time we saw each other, after that, was when we did that date with Herbie Mann.
Wow.
Okay, so in between that time, he went home. He did what he said he was going to do. I went home and did what I was going to do. And the rest is history. 2 years later, he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
The little side brother that story, when I finally met his brother Gregory 40 years later, and he hired me to play in his band, we were together about a couple of months, and he's telling me the stories about how Duane used to always trick him into doing things, being the older brother. And he told me one story how when they first got together, he had been out in California, and Duane called and told him that he had this, great bass player with these long fingers. He should come back home and start the band.
Yeah.
So this is like in '69. He's telling him this. Well, Ray comes back. He hitchhikes back from California, basically, and he shows up and he says, "Well, where's the bass player with the long fingers?" He says, "Oh man, he's up in New York making English. He can't come out." That's the true story of Skyman. We used to call him Skyman. The guy that turned into Sky Dog. But,
Sky Dog. That's right. Yeah, that's right. He was. But also, did you know Brother Barry Oakley too? Did you get to meet him?
I never met Barry. I never met the band because Duane we got the band together, and I used to say we got doing my jingles, and the next time I saw Duane, we won that Herbie Mann session together.
I'll tell you, you are that album is. This is another thing I wanted to ask you about. Did you, when you were kind of a young, just coming on the scene, can you talk about the cats that preceded you, like Everett Barksdale? Like when the weather was bad, was that in the Bronx? Was it conducive for you? Because then those cats, if they lived on Long Island, they couldn't make it in because of the weather, and you'd get the gigs. Can you talk a little bit about that? That's what Chuck told me about. Go ahead, tell me about that.
Is my mic cool now? I tried to move it away.
You're good. You sound good.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Everett Barksdale. Wow, man. Nikki and Sylvia. Wow, you bringing back some memories, man. A lot of cats.
Yeah.
No, we usually got in. Most of the cats lived in town, and a lot of cats lived on the island, but they got in for dates, I was never, it's funny, one of my first big dates in Atlantic, somebody didn't show up at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I got a call at 10:30 to say, can you come down here, and do a session? I said, sure. I got down there by 11 o'clock, and I'm going to the studio, and there's 25 musicians just sitting around waiting for the bass player to show up. They had already learned the song. And it was a date for Wilson Pickett.
Oh, boy.
And it was for Italian. It was a song called Deborah. He sang it in Italian. He sang the first half in Italian and the second half in English. So those things happen. People don't show up. For some reason, they get overbooked. The registry gets messed up and they go to the wrong studio. So things like that do happen. You have to be, that was a big opportunity for me to walk into a studio and do something like that. And I had a long intro where it was like space, where nothing happening, leading to a tempo change. I said, well, here I am. I guess I should do something. And what I did when the red light went on, it stuck. He liked it, and the rest is history. They kept on doing and using that same arrangement ever since then. I know he's in my soul, and he was actually born in Nogales, but I was hoping you could tell. I've heard some legendary stories about Mingus, but did you get a chance to hang with him or at least see him play and some of the antics that he would put? I would just love you to talk a little bit about him. I love it. I can't, not too much really. I would see him at the 5 spot. I saw him at the 5 spot a couple of times. Mm-hmm. I was a shy kid. I would just sit back and watch. And ironically, years later, maybe I forget how to space and time between seeing him at the 5 spot, and I was walking down the street. I had a day job at the time. This must have been 1963, probably 64. And I see his figure walking towards me. I said, that's like Mingus. I'm getting all excited. You know, he's coming towards me. I'm coming towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And he stops me. And he asks me, you know, where's the post office? And so I say, you're Charlie Mingus. I said, yeah, I know, but where's the post office? All I can do is point in the opposite direction. So that's my Mingus story.
I love it.
He was like ships in the night. You know?
But you consider him
how much I loved his playing, how much it meant to me. It was like, you know, he was on his way taking care of business. I was on my lunch hour on my day job at U.S. Plywood, and so
and he's asking for where the post office is. I love it. You know, but you know, part of my show is, like I said, it's focused on leadership, and you know, whether it was Mingus, who you didn't have a lot of, you obviously didn't play with him and you didn't see him a lot, but someone like you're still working with Aretha a lot, and I just would love you to talk about, in your mind, in this day and age when it's, what are some of the leadership skills that are under King Curtis or, you know, Pickett or Aretha that you believe are absolutely vital to pass on to future generations?
I like summing up in terms of communication is really the key.
Mm-hmm.
Being, you know, patient with musicians, having an ear, you know, for what you want, and being able to give them the freedom to express themselves. That's what, you know, King Curtis did, and that's what, for me, that's what Mingus represented. I mean, I used to drink up Mingus every day I come up from school. I had a diet of listening to Mingus, listening to Count Basie, and Maynard Ferguson.
Oh, man.
Those are the three things I would play religiously every day coming home from school.
Wow.
And the music was such a high level, it was beyond my understanding. All I could do was just listen to it, you know, and absorb it. I later along, you know, through study, I learned how to understand what they were playing. But for me, it wasn't just a listening experience. And so the great leaders that I worked with, they were listeners also. King Curtis is a great listener. Aretha's a great listener. Gregory's a great listener. People who listen and communicate are effective leaders, and were willing to delegate, you know, responsibility to people. Say, this is your thing, you do your thing, you work with it. I'm not going to be on top of you.
Right.
You come up with something.
Right. No, I want to go for. Yeah, no, that's important.
I try to instill with my bands also. And I pick the right people. Being a good producer is part of being a good leader. You know, pick the team and communicating with that team.
How come King Curtis? I remember when I interviewed Spider Webb, he said King Curtis told him, he goes, Spider, you may not be able to read. He's like, you can play your butt off. You know, I mean, he was really that dude. I mean, I mean, you talked to me. You know, Jerry and I, through some emails, we talked a little bit, and you talked about full creative expression in a nurturing environment. How often do you experience that? Are you able to create that yourself with your bands? I mean, that seemed to me like that was very, very visceral and real at a certain period of time in your career. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about now in your musical life, when that stuff comes up, if you can talk a little bit about that it's still there.
Well, it's, you know, you have to create your environment. You know, we say it, you know, in Buddhism, eshofuni. You want to infect your environment as opposed to your environment infecting you. So, you know, you bring to the table, you know, this patience, listening, and when I refer to the nurturing environment in our email, I was referring to those B.B. King sessions where it was a free-for-all. Basically, we did, B.B. wanted to change his music, which I didn't know at the time. But, you know, producers and the contractors, they talk among themselves, they hire musicians, and they don't necessarily tell the musicians what to do. They just do your thing. That way, nothing's in your head, just be you.
Right.
You know, which in itself is nurturing.
Right.
And we were allowed, you know, to do that. Nothing was ever written out. We just watched B.B. I would watch Baby pat his foot, and he had a whole legal pad full of lyrics, and he'd be running them off. And I'd make up something that would correspond to what he was playing. So that's the kind of environment this is really, I mean, it's ideal, especially when you consider usually sessions would run like, you know, we try to do 3 or 4 songs. We weren't under the impression. We just did it. We did the albums like usually 2, 3 days, I believe. Didn't take long. The first one was like probably maybe 2 sessions. And we got to know each other then. And the second session, we did more albums. The second album, completely well. We were all, you know, buddy-buddy. So it was even more relaxed at that point. The music even grew more. We took more chances with the music, so to speak. This has to happen, you know, you have to allow this to happen and make room for it to happen.
You have to make room. You have to be, you talked about patience, and then also the word that seems to, is also trust. I mean,
yeah.
You know, it's trust. And you know, we're cooking here with Jerry Jemmott. We got another tune here, Jerry, another Name That Tune. I think you're going to get this pretty quick, but I just want to tell you, settle in and relax, and we'll come back and talk about it, okay?
Okay.
Find the shadows cast by rainbows, there you'll meet the sage. Feeding rabbits bits of lettuce, or cleaning out the cage. He can give you more direction than you've ever known. Show you your brown baby shoes now, my how you have grown. Ain't it nice to fly, you're waving as soft clouds go by, but peace won't be still of its own free will. Say you want to go exploring, you got to find some truth. You can't spend one more day of Christians shouting down at you. You say you don't dig politics, that never was your bag. People who could run for office wave their private flags. Ain't it nice to fly, you're waving as soft clouds go by, but peace won't be still of its own free will. Big man,
Oh, man. I mean, I got to tell you, the sweetest Hubert Laws on flute, Gerald Jemmott on bass. I think that's pretty...
Neil Scott Heron.
Oh, man. You know, please. I'm so... And I got to tell you, I don't know who it is, and I'll have to find it on the YouTube clip, whoever uploaded that track. But they actually said that, like, I wanted to do this because Jerry's playing bass on this, and I want to put it into a higher... fidelity, and thank God that's called Free Will, 1972. Jerry, break it down, man. I mean, Gil Scott, more prescient than ever, man. Break it down.
Man, he was a man. He was poet laureate. He told a story. I mean, the first thing I did with him, the revolution will not be televised. I was like, yeah, you know, get out, you know, get out your seat, come out in the street. You know, it's like get down. It's you know, it's what we go through. You know, it's, you know, being blacks in this country, it's always a struggle. It's never ending, and it's worldwide. You know, discrimination is worldwide, and you have to be. You know, if you're not in it, you won't win it. And you're born in the struggle, you're gonna die in the struggle, and that's the end of it. And you hope you're gonna make it better for the next person. So as artists, we always try to, you know, put out music that's going to inspire people to, like, you know, to think for themselves. So, you know, look up the sheet to see what's under there. You know, look, you know, listen again, listen closely to what you're being fed. And he was amazing at doing that. I mean, he comes from a long line of the lost poets, Nina Simone. You look at there's so many artists who did have taken the responsibility, who taking up the mantle for freedom. Joe Louis. I saw a picture with Richard Dubin in it. Cats going down to Alabama to do a concert, the first integrated concert in Alabama in 1963. They were all on the airplane practicing. It's a great photo. And I said, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, should I be surprised? You know, because I grew up with this kid basically from the age, like maturing years as a musician. From 14 to 16, we were together all the time. So we have to stay in the fight. We need all the people to come together. All of us, you know, mankind, white, black, yellow, green, orange. We have to come together for equality. And, you know, music is a great vehicle to get this done, to get people's minds to think for themselves, like he said, free will. Not accept what's been handed down to you as a law. This is the way it has to be.
Right. No, I think it's really important because the time that I'm honing in on my show is from 65 to 75, and I just personally I was hoping you could talk a little bit about. I hear this urgency in the music. Obviously, real people are playing the music. There are no drum machines. It's and you're getting you have these arrangers like Horace Ott, and then they're bringing in, the music just swung so hard. The original masters were still around, but, we lost Coltrane, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, all within a period of time in the late 60s. And can you say for yourself that, how you felt about that and how you expressed that feeling inside? Like you said, we have to come together. People say that all the time, and I know what you mean, but it's so hard. It's so much easier said than done, but I feel through the music at that time, you guys did it. And I was just hoping you could talk about how you felt emotionally at that time and how if you poured a lot of that angst and that feeling into the sessions you were on.
Oh, you had to. There's a certain, the feeling of loss and emptiness is the first emotion you feel. And, where do you go from here? I'm actually working at the Audubon Ballroom where Malcolm X was killed. Assassinated, I should say. And so things like that happening, they really hit, close to home. And it actually fueled my music and made me more, I guess, knowingly and knowingly, you cannot help but take that out the equation. And it becomes part of your conscious DNA that you just do things a certain way to get certain things done. You want to make an impression. I'm sure it affected my music. I can't pick out, I guess maybe the best examples of some of that expression come out with stuff I did with B.B. King.
Mm-hmm.
A free expression, because we just went for it. And he accepted what we did. And I found out years later that's exactly what he wanted, to change his music.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, it's so cool that,
making a change.
Mm-hmm.
Making some kind of, not doing it the old way anymore. Let's do it a new way.
I mean, Jerry, Jemmott, we're having a ball here. Tell me can you talk a little bit about what we talked about before about this Jackie Robinson youth baseball project that that's going on?
Oh yeah, that's it's funny how people in this era, history is written by as I could say, it's his story.
Mm-hmm.
And his story being the man or whoever's in control. However you want to look at it. You look at it. A lot of aspects of who his is. I wrote an article called Human Livestock. It's on my website. Check it out. But the Jackie Robinson thing still holds true, what he was trying to do. And we've combined his efforts with that of Michael Jackson's efforts, basically, to come up with a musical performance that's going to, keep the message alive. The same thing Jackie was trying to do, Michael was trying to do, Ray was trying to do. We all have to make some mistake. Nina was doing. You never stop doing it. And it's great that one of my students envisioned this club coming around, the Jackie Robinson theme, and got these kids from different neighborhoods, up well-to-do neighborhoods and urban neighborhoods not so well, to come together in a baseball club and compete against one another, changing uniforms. One week you're wearing this uniform, one week another uniform, and they have fun. They're getting to know each other. And we're making a musical extravaganza out of this process also. Besides playing sports, we're going to go into the major sports arenas with the kids singing our version of America the Beautiful, followed by Michael Jackson's Black or White. This is what it's morphed into. It's going beyond. It's going from the athletic sports thing into the arena into entertainment world, which is the way my student expressed it. He said back in the old days, Negro Leagues, Jerry, this is what they always had at the game. They had a party going on. They had bands, entertainment, everything going on. So he's trying to bring this back into youth baseball. That was his first idea, but now he's gotten even more involved in making this presentation. He's going to take the major sports world and make it available to other youth organizations to participate with the music that they're going to produce. So I'm really excited about that, having that come forth. We have a tentative deadline of Dodger Stadium on the 15th. We'll see if we don't make that. We have other possibilities coming up. Michael Jackson's birthday, a great one. But we're all people involved, activists or entertainers are what really fuels, people's imagination. Look at John Lennon, Imagine. We also have access to, the Beatles music to use. So also we're talking about using Revolution. So we have the kids are worked up about it. We're worked up about it. We're trying to begin it's called Club 42, and now we've organized a Friends of Club 42. Much like my mother did when my sister went to Mississippi to do voter registration in the 60s, 63, 64. My mother organized a group called the Friends of Mississippi, and we were able to support them, their efforts down there, with a support base in New York. So all this is important to get anything done. You need support.
How come, how come B.B. King, Aretha, how come they were so secure that they wanted you to change the music?
Well, they would, Aretha didn't necessarily want to change her music. She did her thing. They were developing her, and in fact, they did try to do some things.
I didn't mean Aretha. I meant the guys like King Curtis, the guys that were like, we are cool enough with ourselves. We're not going to micromanage you, because I feel like that's how real progress will be made. Like, do something new, but it takes real leaders to basically say, I don't need to micromanage everything. But why were they not micromanagers? That's what I'm trying to get at. Why? How?
Well, they weren't. They had trust.
Why though? Yeah.
BB had been playing a long time. He had been a DJ, and he wanted to do something different. He was, he's playing the blues, but he had a small audience. He was working his butt off. He loved what he did, but he had a feeling to, he was a DJ. He heard a lot of music. He had been working on the Thrillers going for let me see. I met him in '69. He told me the story later on, but that was recorded originally by Roger Hawkins in 1958. And we recorded it in 1969. So that's 11 years he had to listen to it. He always liked it. He told me he had played it, but he never could get a handle on it as to how, he would make it more, the story more prophetic, so to speak. You want to make it better. You hear a good song, you want to make it better. As a songwriter, you expect somebody to sing your song and bring it to life. So he felt he could do something with it. It was a hit back in '58. But he thought he could do something with it. He said, this is like the last session we had. He said, what do you think about this one, fellas? Can we do something with this? Sure. Stomp it off. It was that trust factor that he had, and the belief that he wanted, the trust in us. He saw that he had the potential here to do something different, to make a breakthrough. And even after we did it, it was like one track on the album, but it was up to Herb Lavelle, the contractor and drummer, who said, hey, man, put strings on it. And he had been in the booth mixing and getting the sounds anyway, so he had their ear. So he said, put strings on it, no problem. He called Bert DiCoteau. Bert DiCoteau came in, and he's doing all the other arrangements, and said, I wanted a string arrangement for this. And the rest is history.
Well,
that opened up this whole market to people around the world for that one song.
I'm going to have to go back and do research on this. This is so fat. Yeah.
He went back to playing everything else as being basically blues. That one song was a samba. It was a samba on top of a blues, or a tango on top of a blues. If you could look at the breakdown, how it happened rhythmically, musically. I played a samba rhythm on top of it. He would say to keep playing his blues, and it worked. We had, we're used to mixing up, back in the day, we wasn't listening about fusion. We just made music. We take some of this, some of that, and we made music. That was the end of it. And we was coming in the Bronx. It was multicultural. We heard all kinds of music coming up. So it was part of this, tradition to let's have fun. Let's make something. It's like you go in the refrigerator to prepare a meal. You get a little bit of this, you get a little bit of that. You got a meal.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have to always scratch up from the beginning.
Well, the great drummer Ndugu Chancellor said music is a meal. So I think you're. I wanted to. I know you're going to be promoting some iconic American songs and Michael Jackson tunes, but I also we're going to listen to a tune right now, and I want Jerry. I want you to consider to incorporate this cat into your baseball music. Okay, we'll take a listen to it and come back. All right.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Jemmott, what do you got for us?
Well, that could be a lot of different people. I hear a lot of congas there.
That's right. You got okay.
Candido.
Actually, Ray Armando.
Ray
Armando, the main. I think you're actually a cousin of Armando Peraza, if I remember correctly.
I think. Mm-hmm.
And then that was your boy. And I tell you, these are the guys. These are the cats that we miss. That was Groove Holmes, Down Home Funk.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I heard the organ.
And I
heard the organ.
Yeah, and the cool thing was there actually he when you listen back later he was laying it on the Fender Rhodes too, which you rarely hear. You normally only associate Groove Holmes with the B3, but Jerry, you really came of age with those organ trios, and a lot of the white cats I talked to that came up around your time, they started in clubs. Didn't matter if it was Madison, Wisconsin, or Chicago. John Abercrombie's a good example of working with Johnny Hammond Smith. Ben Sidran worked with a great organist. those organ trios, can you talk about the significance that they had? I mean, you worked with Shirley Scott. You did so much work with that beautiful B3 right when it was coming out of the church into the nightclub. And I just was hoping you could talk a little bit about what those, how that affected your career.
Oh man, I love organ. Once I got into the bass, I love bass, any kind of bass, organ, bass lines, Jimmy Smith, Groove Holmes, go Jack McDuff. I go into the clubs, get on to Smalls or Count Basie's or Wells, and there'd be an organ trio up there. That sound is just, it's something. It's a lot of the guys in those clubs, they play with the foot pedals, so I was kind of surprised to get these calls and play bass with the organist. I was like, overjoyed, because I'm going to show them what a real bass sounds like.
Right. It's true, though. Yeah.
There's a limit to what they can do, improvisational-wise. They have certain things they play, predictable patterns, which are great. They're great. I mean, my favorite one was, Black Talk.
Black Talk. Charles Erland.
Charles Erland.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Heavy.
We had a ball. I mean,
It was a great story about Erland was that he grew up in Philly with Pat Martino, and the two of them went one night to see, and Charles was playing tenor sax, and they went to go see Kenny Burrell and Jimmy Smith at a club in Atlantic City, and Jimmy's output was so intense that Charles just dropped the saxophone and picked up the B3 immediately,
Yep.
And actually, one of the cool things, I think probably one reason those cats would bring you in to play live or in those sessions, it's just the electric bass. It just provided a lot more punch than the bass, right? I mean, that's what the Doors did with Ray Manzarek. Couldn't it just didn't translate on record as opposed to that thumping bass, Oh,
mm-hmm. That's the beauty in the electric bass. I mean, I love it. I loved it. When I first heard the electric bass, I couldn't stand the sound of it. I had to work it out so it would be, get a sound that I could live with, basically. It was a compromise for me. But playing with the organ trios was fantastic. These all, once again, my heroes I'm playing with, and to be able to, the honor to play with them and to support what they were doing. It's a different feel. I mean, like we can get more, more down funky, it's more articulate. I can actually you can even play less. You can play as much as you go according to what is needed at the time. Sure, yeah. Does that answer your question?
No, yeah. I mean, there was just I think I want to, as we wrap up part one here with Jerry Jemmott, I wanted to ask you if you could talk about what it was like to discover that your heroes were actually completely selfless, but for the most part, completely selfless people. I mean, I think that's what I'm realizing on this journey now, is that when I reach out to you and Bernard and Chuck and Spider, Cecil McBee, Gary Bartz, Pat Martino, I don't want to leave anybody. I mean, it's been hundreds of cats. And I'm realizing, I'm like, holy cow, the guys that I've tapped into, they're selfless people. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what that must have been like when you first dawned on you that these guys were selfless.
Oh, man, it's, guys from the early beginnings, I look at it this way, to wrap it up, the best musicians that I met were the ones that were selfless. All the stars, I look back and I look at Harry Lakovsky, I look at Joe Newman, I look at, of course, Richard Davis and all the bass players, the horn players, the string Selwood Clark, the string players. I mean, these are like fantastic, highly professional, philharmonically trained, classical trained musicians, jazz musicians, and the best ones were the coolest.
Right.
The ones who were most proficient on their instruments, the most coolest in terms of personality. They didn't try to, berate you or whatever, not that anybody did in the studio, but they were all, they were all supportive. They were all very supportive. The ones who didn't play as great, they would, they walk away.
Mm-hmm.
The great ones, they would come to you.
Love it. Love it.
And they had a very, warm, you get a vibe. You get a vibe.
I can hear it,
Really
too.
vibe.
I mean, I was born in 78, but I can hear it. I can hear that. It was total love, man. And Jerry, I got to tell you, we're going to do part 2 at the end of the month, man. I wanted to tell you it really, by the way, don't call Jerry Jemmott before 9 o'clock in the morning. I made the mistake of doing that one. But I had a ball, man. And we'll be in touch, man. Keep it happening, brother. I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Well, I do thank you, man. I thank you for the audience, and I'm sharing what we have to share because you have I'd like to compliment you on your great work, Jake. You've really documented the stories of a lot of people's stories that need to be told. I'm looking at Billy Hart, Richard Davis, Eugene Wright, Bobby Womack, Candido, the stories that they told that you brought out of them. I'm really delighted to be among their company, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, my man. I'll talk to you soon, Jerry.
All right, have a good day.
You too, brother. We'll be right
So
back.
long, everyone. Peace.
Peace. Welcome back inside